You can do stuff, you can move things, but do me a favor, and I'm quoting Ghostbusters now, don't become a vaporous apparition. I don't want to see you.
Yeah, sometimes ignorance is bliss, right?
I don't need to see you, and the same thing goes for an alien.
Welcome to Conversely, the show that's like a cocktail party for minds, except instead of mixing drinks, we're stirring up ideas. I'm your host, Scott Stroessel, and I'm excited to introduce you to my three guests who have unique, or you could say converse, backgrounds, and I'm excited to see what sort of concoctions we can create. So, on with the introductions, or maybe we should call them aperitifs. All right, so first up, you may recognize the second most famous Cam Fowler from our first episode. Cam is not a hockey player, but is a sales manager at a medicated animal feed company. Hopefully I got that right this time.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Good enough.
Okay. Last time I pulled his description from LinkedIn and it was outdated, so but the LinkedIn one sounded better, so more impressive. I don't know. I think you're just dumbing it down for conversation.
I'm just a salesman. That's all.
All right. And next up, joining us from the future over in Hong Kong, Joyce Tsang is a content marketer and the founder of Joyce Tsang Content Marketing. You were a reporter and an editor. I think I saw you used to be a dancer and a dance instructor back in the day, and now you've started your own marketing business, so it sounds like you do a little bit of everything.
Kind of like you.
Yeah, that's true. I do a little bit of everything. That's a good point. Yep. So, content marketing, so you just help people with their content for their brand and help it be, I guess, productive for their brand? Is that a good way to say that? How would you describe what you actually do with content?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I don't want to go through the whole in-depth kind of lecture style of what
Sure.
content marketing is, but essentially what we're trying to do here is to help brands figure out what story they should be telling. So content, like you said, it could be pretty much anything. This is a piece of content, online social media posts are content, offline interactions are content, but it's really about digging out what story they should be telling so that they become top of mind for their target audiences. So boiling all that down, that's essentially what it is, to attract these cool people to these people's brands by storytelling is the sense of content marketing.
Nice. Cool. All right. And finally, Calvin Schwartz is a journalist, a novelist, and a broadcaster, and currently serves on the advisory committee of Women's Health Institute at Rutgers Medical School. And somehow with all that, you also find the time to do your own podcast called Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. And I really liked this comment from you. You said, I thrive on reinvention after 60.
Yes.
I like that.
Should I define that?
Sure, go for it.
I'll define it. Well, I worked for an eyewear company, the biggest eyewear company in the world, Luxottica Group, for 25 years. Prior to that, I was a pharmacist. And then at 65, the universe kind of reeled me in, and it made me write my first novel. And then I decided to retire, but not retire. So I became a journalist at 65, 12 years ago. And then I became a broadcaster. And then I got involved with the Women's Health Institute and became an advisor, a social media advisor at the Rutgers Robert Johnson Medical School. And then all the things I was doing, decided to give back to students. And then Rutgers grabbed me 3 years ago and asked me to teach. So I became a professor at 77. And now I'm a podcaster. And then, of course, I showed you. And
Yeah, I was going to say, you're about to release a book, right?
Yep, in 4 weeks, there's A Tortoise in My Hair, A Journey to Spirit, will be published. It got phenomenal reviews from Kirkus. So all of that began after I turned 65.
Very nice.
So I'm a great believer in reinvention because when you turn in your 70s, it doesn't mean you're going to sit on a front porch drinking prune juice on the rocks in a rocking chair. So that's what that means, Scott.
And you said your book is being released, 3 weeks, did you say? So it should be coming out right about the same time as this episode then.
Yeah, it'll be on Amazon and just about anywhere you can buy books online.
And so wherever people are listening to this podcast, wherever the show notes are on where you're listening to this podcast, you can find links to his book. So
It will be calvinschwartz.com.
There you go, calvinschwartz.com. Perfect. That makes it easy.
Yep.
Well, I like the title. There's a
Thank
tortoise
you.
in my hair. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
I enjoy a good pun, so.
It's a great pun.
Cool. Well, so I have, I think, an interesting question to discuss. As Cam experienced on the first episode, I like to just kind of surprise you and not give you a chance to prepare because I think part of how you approach a question is as interesting as your resulting answer, right? If you spent a week thinking about it and gave me an answer, that's not nearly as interesting as talking through it. So here's my hypothetical question for you. Aliens have taken over planet Earth, okay? And they are putting humans in zoos. What do you want in your zoo enclosure?
I'm pretty sure aliens have already taken over the Earth, right?
Well, maybe, I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, probably pretty unlikely, right? But let's assume it happened. What would you want? What's first things you think of that you want to have in your zoo enclosure?
I'd want to be in there with some other people. I mean, I'm a person who thrives on interaction like this, and I enjoy usually the company of other people. And so I think to be in there by myself would be probably the worst thing I could come up with. Solitary confinement comes to mind. So I would want some other people in there. Hopefully people I liked, but but it would be good. Be good in there, being there with some other people.
For sure.
I second that. I would want. There was a great book, Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five, and there's a scene in the movie, and that's when you posed this question, Scott. I thought about that, where Billy Pilgrim is whisked away to this planet Tralfamador, and he's put into a kind of a cage. It's just like you said. He's put into a cage with this. I'm trying to remember her name. It's very. It'll come to me. But anyway, they gave him a woman to be with him in a cage. So because I'm of the male persuasion, I probably want company and probably would want opposite sex company to begin with.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And actually, if you think about, we have zoos that we put animals in, right? One of the things that we often do is either give them opposite sex company or not, depending on what you're trying to achieve there. But yeah, that's definitely, it wouldn't be surprising if that was one of the things that they did, yeah.
And I'd like access to the internet. Mm-hmm. Because I'm addicted.
Assuming there is internet, because if all the humans are in zoo, I don't know. Yeah.
Assuming there is, and of course some reading material, fast food, basically all the conveniences that I've enjoyed. I'd like in that kind of environment.
Sure.
And by the way, comment. It's not a preposterous question that you asked. It's not. I just had a discussion with a fellow from Vancouver because he's a philosopher, and I brought up the notion that on the bottom of the ocean floor, recently the government found some stuff, some like metal, but it wasn't from this earth. Congress is trying to get the government to release a lot of stuff, they're keeping secret. And actually, I'm kind of glad they do keep that stuff secret. I'm not in the mood to know about that.
Yeah, sometimes ignorance is bliss, right?
Oh, yeah. Don't tell me about it. But it's very propitious, that question you asked, because it's not that, I don't think it's that far removed.
I mean, it's possible. It seems unlikely, but it's certainly possible. So, what's your first thought, Joyce? What's the first thing you think, oh, well, I definitely need this?
I actually went and thought about the whole idea of a zoo, right? So even before thinking about what I would prefer in a zoo setting, I was really thinking about how the zoo would actually look like. So like Cam mentioned, like solidarity, or are you actually in some sort of enclosure that kind of mimics your whole environment just to showcase your real contextual life to visitors who probably doesn't know much about how we are? or is it going to be something that's more like a performative art kind of aspect where they invite somebody that might be from their own species or other species, and they host something like this, like go and talk to Cam and Joyce and Kelvin and see what it's like. So I was trying to ride off of other people's ideas, but at the same time I think I really went into the whole definition or the whole idea of what a zoo would look like before I even have the chance to really consider what I would like in there.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, so that would be something that I would think about. And at the end of the day, I think if the whole zoo setting isn't even going to be what we consider a zoo nowadays, then,
right.
Maybe it's that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking a little deep on your question as well. But I definitely went straight to that.
Sure. No, that's certainly true. So, we think about our zoos, right, with animals. Sometimes it's just like a cage with an animal in it. Sure. But there are some zoos that are, it's just like you said, designed to mimic their normal environment. And there might be a large open area that just is just like their normal environment, but with a fence around it. Right.
Definitely.
And so, are you going to have is it going to be almost like a little fifth of an acre with a tiny house on it and, like an in-town lot? And is it going to look like what your natural habitat is? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Exactly.
With a little mailbox and white picket fence, the stereotype of...
Yeah. Now it looks like kind of like, I would imagine like a Wes Anderson movie, like some sort of really surrealistic thing that's happening. And I'm like there waving. And then, my dogs are there at the door as well as like, they have no clue what the hell is going on, but we're living in the same house, listening to the same music, eating the same food, but we're in a zoo. So yeah, that might be interesting. I don't know. Obviously, I don't want to be in a zoo anytime soon as one of the participants, but, it might be that. It might be that. Then we might not even know the difference. I might not have to even tell you what I need there because I already basically have all that I need.
Yeah, is your zoo, is it like you're in just a small town and there's a big wall around it? Is that what a zoo enclosure looks like for a person? Maybe that's not the end of the world. I don't know. Who knows what it would look like, right?
Yeah.
I could just hear the aliens with their narration, and our houses look exactly like they do now. And they're like, this is the Joyce Tsang and her native habitat, just going about your business, doing your thing.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the life of somebody who works from home, as invented after the disease called COVID. You can see here this other person that has a very different lifestyle, even though they also work from home. I don't know. Maybe that's something that they would narrate.
Well, and that's a good point. I said a fifth of an acre with a tiny house and a white picket fence and a mailbox, but that's kind of because of where I live. That's what I imagine a stereotypical home would be like. In other parts of the world, it's going to be completely different, obviously. Yeah.
I don't have a picket fence. I would love to have that. I have a very small little thing around my house, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's tons of people who don't even have a house. They live in apartments or, whatever. So, yeah, would a zoo be like an apartment building with big windows on the walls so you can go up the apartment building and look at all of the people in their apartments? I don't know what it would look like.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys are fans of Netflix and stuff, but I watch quite a bit of just like, sometimes it's junk, it's just stuff on it. There's this show, if I recall correctly, it's called Future Of. So they just kind of go in and talk about the future of different things, and one of them was like architecture. And what they kind of propose as a theoretical idea after 2050 is that we'll be starting to grow buildings. So we'll be using biological matter, so plants. You'll be growing it in a mold, that sort of stuff, and then you'll grow this building, and then everybody's kind of living within this unit. I don't even know if you call it an apartment, but like a unit of thing. And your whole ecosystem and all the things that you need is in there, but you're taking the lift. So instead of walking to your nearest grocery store, you might go to level 55, and that's where your groceries are. And maybe that's what it would look like. If you went to level 71, there's the exhibit of humankind. I don't know, but...
And of course, who knows what these aliens would be like, how they move, how they, can they fly? Do they take elevators? I don't know. Who knows, right? They crawl up the outside of the building and look in the... Who knows what it would be like? Yeah, how they would... it's interesting. Yeah. So let's assume you're in some sort of an enclosed area. This is kind of like you're stranded on a desert island, right? Similar type of question in some ways. What do you want to have with you? What are some things? So we want to be able to communicate with people, for sure, right? We want interaction with people. Whether that's other people in our enclosure, or maybe there's doors that can open between, like adjoining rooms in a hotel. You wanted access to the internet. What other kind of things?
We're a social species, and I think about this all the time. I think about the hereafter, and I think about if I go to the hereafter, which is similar to being in a cage. The hereafter, a cage. I thought about the notion that I love my college sports, my Rutgers football, basketball, and I thought about, well, if I go to the hereafter, whatever that is, and I'm there, and again, I'm in a cage, and I have the capability of watching my alma mater play football or basketball. Is it really going to be a lot of fun? Is it going to be really enjoyment if I'm alone and I can't share that being a spectator with other people, the socialization?
Sure. Part of being a fan is the community with the other fans, right?
Yes. So again, going back to what I said earlier, one of the key elements is, if I'm in that cell, that room, whatever, I just like a whole bunch of company.
Yeah.
And then it's not even a cell. It might even be kind of nice.
If they're giving you food and they're providing everything for you,
sure.
yeah, maybe.
That could be nice as long as I have that socialization aspect. And I guess that's why when you're really bad in prison, they put you in solitary.
Because that's it's a big penalty, yeah.
I'll head the other direction for everybody has, enough social interaction, and sometimes you need some downtime, right? And Scott, I know a little about you, so you and I are big music fans. So I'm going to say I need some music. I
need a guitar.
Yeah, a guitar, maybe some headphones and some, my selection of music for my all my digital collection. That would be great. So yeah, music for me would be a must.
Yeah, in fact, so Cam was on the first episode, and Jo Lynn, another person who was on the first episode with us, I was actually just talking to her the other day, and she just started at college, and she got her guitar. She hadn't had it for a little while, and she referred to her guitar as her therapy. It was her therapy guitar, because she likes to just kind of unwind and play it a little bit, and yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think music, sports are both things that I would want in some capacity, whether watching sports, playing music, listening to music, something for sure.
I want to jump onto the idea that Cam just brought up, and I think that's it hit a spot in me as well, where, when a lot of people felt like it was really hard to go through COVID and, isolation and all that kind of stuff. It might sound a bit evil, but I was like, it's nice. Like, I get to have my own space, and, I don't have to go out for meetings. I
was the same way.
I hate going to physical meetings. I never see the point of it if we can do it online or if it can be conversed in an email. Or it's more just like finding an easier way for some other people who doesn't, no offense, but, who wants to just kind of dwell and linger a bit longer than you need to when it comes to, appointing a specific kind of location. You must go to this location for this meeting. I always am a believer of that. If you just want something done, you'll find a way. So I personally think it would be nice to just have some downtime by myself as well. No offense to my husband and my 2 dogs either. Like, I would love to have them there. But, if there were days where I'm on an exhibit by myself, I really didn't mind about that either. I think, the music part, I think that would be something that's nice to have. For me, I actually graduated with a BA in visual arts. So I was technically trained as a painter. But I didn't go down that career path. But my paint palettes and those kind of stuff would be kind of your therapeutic guitar, the same concept of that. So having that for me would be very important. And I recently just moved houses, so I think that really questioned me as well. Like, what did I find as being the most important thing that I need in my new house? Apart from the essential stuff like a table and my computer and stuff. And it's super weird, but I was never a big lover for cooking food at all. It kind of just came after being stuck at home, and I'm like, it's much cheaper. I can get to eat a bit healthier and things like that. My condiment stand is probably something I would want, when I'm kind of trapped anywhere. So whatever they feed me, they might feed me something that they consider very nice, but I need my salt, I need my paprika, I need my stuff there. And it definitely gives me a very strong sense of reassurance. And I love staring at my condiment stand right now, even if I'm not cooking anything. It feels like there is like opportunity to cook new stuff. You're like, oh, I have that. I have my olive oil, I have my butter, I have all these things here ready. So it's kind of weird, but I never realized that until recently. I moved and I got myself a condiment stand. I'm like, this is it. This is the thing I need in my life. Starting from now on, it has to be there.
So here's the question then. You get one condiment. Which one do you choose?
That is a very hard one. But I think what I would choose is, I don't know if you guys probably have it as well, but I don't know if you enjoy it or if you had it in the same way. But this Thai spice sauce thingy that's for chicken, essentially. It's a glass bottle. It has a chicken on top, and it's this gel-looking thing with pieces of chili spices in there. It tastes like a sweet and sour sauce, but it's just essentially for chicken. But I have it with everything. That would probably be my go-to. As long as I have that, I'm pretty okay.
Nice. We've actually had this conversation many times. My kids, they've done their rankings of what's the best condiment, which one is the number one, and my youngest would say ranch dressing is his number one, and probably sour cream is a close second. Those are his favorites right now. As he gets older, who knows? But
You can use ranch dressing on anything.
Yeah.
yeah.
Really?
I've seen people dip pizza in ranch dressing, which seems strange, but yeah.
I actually do that too.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, some condiments can make a big difference, right? If they're giving you food and maybe it's okay, but a little bit of your Thai
maybe some
spice sauce on
sriracha or
top
something,
would make
yeah.
a big
We'll
difference.
spice it up a little.
Yeah, because it's hard to know, what kind of food would they give you, right? Are they even gonna understand the concept of food like we understand it? Like, is that
Do they kind of just smell it, or do they kind of like
taste,
look at
do they
it?
have taste buds, or do they just consume things just for energy?
They just give you your nutrient block, and then that's it. It's not very tasty. Yeah,
Right, exactly. They're like, what's the difference? It's all
it'll keep them alive. It's got all the things they need in it. It's just not very tasty.
Yeah, who knows, right? Or would they even eat? Aliens, who knows, right? They could photosynthesize, and that's how they get energy. Like, they might not even understand what we're doing, putting these things inside of ourselves, right? It could be
True. It's interesting. Last week I interviewed a couple of horror writers, and to prepare for that, I read a short story, and it was interesting because it was the prequel. This Gary Hill wrote a prequel to War of the Worlds. So you're familiar with War of the Worlds. Aliens come and they invade Earth, and they're pretty much going to take it over, and then they fall victim to our natural occurring bacteria. So they die. But he wrote the prequel that these aliens came from another planet that was becoming inhospitable, and they did their research and they found that Earth would be the most suitable. So their initial intent was to come and peacefully coexist with us here on Earth. And owing to the way we are as a species, the fact that we're warlike and we wouldn't accept them, they decided they'd have to invade. And that was the prequel. And I thought that was really interesting, kind of explaining why they came here and they invaded us, because they couldn't trust us. Interesting. These sidebar conversations with what you brought up.
which is really the goal, is to create lots of little sidebars and tangents.
Yes. But the whole alien thing, as I said, it's. I also interviewed a young woman who was on Mount Shasta, which supposedly is a very powerful spiritual place, and she was very, very sick, and she was abducted by an alien they took her on the ship, and they cured her, and they brought her back. and she's as regular and down to earth and sane.
She's down to earth now that they sent her back, right?
Yeah, she wrote a book about something about a journey to tell us. I'm looking to see if I have it up there. But absolutely believable, absolutely believable. And so your question, the more I think about it, Scott, is very profound because it could be very true.
Well, it's kind of weird because aliens coming to the Earth feels in some ways like it's never going to happen. Obviously, that's impossible. Like, not impossible, but like very unlikely. It's not going to happen. But at the same time, it feels like, well, I mean, the universe is so big. It's almost inevitable that there is life somewhere, and it's going to find us, or we'll find it. And so somehow in my head, it's simultaneously impossible and inevitable, which I guess doesn't really make a lot of sense. But
do you guys? Here we're going to branch off. Maybe they were here a long time ago, because I in my first novel actually I did some research. I don't know if it's Machu Picchu or Peru or someplace in South America, but and also in Egypt with some of the
pyramids and such.
Yeah, some of the things that were built back then was before the wheel. So in Peru, some of whether it's the Mayan, some of the things that were built, and there are ruins around, were built way before the wheel. So the question remains: how did these ancient peoples carry some of these hundreds of tons blocks up a mountain without a wheel? So it leads you to believe that they had some help.
Or my feeling on some of the stuff when you're looking way back in history and we say, we don't understand how did this happen, what happened, is maybe we just don't know, right? We're missing some key piece of, if we'd known that this was going on, or that this thing was there, if we'd found that, we would have understood. But maybe there's some obvious explanation and we just don't have the information because there's so much from history that we're just, I don't want to say guessing per se. It's educated guessing, but it's a lot of guessing, right? A lot of assumptions. So yeah, but who knows, right? They could have had help. Yeah, we don't know, and that's the whole thing.
We don't know, but there's little snippets of information that comes along. A lot of it gets gobbled up by governments. And they don't want to share it with the general population. I'm glad they don't. I want to be left in the dark.
You just want to root for Rutgers and
pretend
like there's no aliens, right?
I've done a bunch of paranormal as a journalist. I didn't ask for this, but I've done a bunch of paranormal investigations and I write about it. I explain it. And there are things that happened that's inexplicable, and I lived it. I'm just a regular guy, a big fan of Iowa women's basketball. That's about as regular a guy as you can get. But yet I've been, I guess, gifted that I've had some of these paranormal, and in all the paranormal things that I've done, I make it perfectly clear, and I say it out loud, so that if there's a spirit out there, I say it out loud. You can do stuff, you can move things, but do me a favor, don't, and I'm quoting Ghostbusters now, don't become a vaporous apparition. I don't want to see you. I don't need to see you. And the same thing goes for an alien. You want to do stuff, you want to move things around, you want to move my clock ahead, you want to turn the lights on and off in the room, go right ahead. You want to, hey, listen, I have a picture of a relative there that jumped out of a picture, and I read about it. Jumped out of a picture, and typed on my phone. Well, she typed "mom" because it's my mother who's gone, and I've asked a million techie people who typed that. Who typed that? So the point being, what you said, Scott, is we don't know. We're smart. We've got AI coming down the road, but we don't know. So once again, going back to the original question, it's a really valid question because we don't know.
Yeah, certainly possible.
I think Kelvin raised like three really cool stuff that just, kind of like, I was like, But like one thing is, I don't know if it's a coincidence or if, you guys are aware, I don't think you guys are, but August during these few days, it is a kind of a spiritual week here in Asian communities. So you would see a lot of people burning what you would see as paper, but they're kind of representative of like offerings and stuff in front of their houses or their villages and things like that. So I've been there, and then obviously mass media takes advantage of that as well. So there's a lot of like spiritual paranoia shows going on. So I've been like being bombarded with a lot of that as well. So I don't know, that might be a cool note for you guys. August around this time, because we run on a different calendar when it comes to festivals, which are, from the lunar calendar. So it would be kind of considered July in the Asian sense. That's kind of the ghost month where supposedly, the spirits come back and then they're not trying to haunt you, but they're trying to come back and do stuff kind of like, we're traveling, they're traveling as well. They're just traveling. This is their month. But anyways, that's the paranoia part that I picked up on, a coincidence here as well, the timing wise. And we were talking about the pyramids and things. I watched another show on Netflix, but I think what it was, they raise a really good point. Like you said, we just don't know. But I really think like it's not that we don't know. It's people are not trying to let us know. There are people who knows, but we just don't know. The kind of the idea that they're raising there is that there is literally a chunk of history that's been missing, and the reason for that is because that chunk of history doesn't match up with what traditional archaeologists wants us to believe. We did start off from evolution from primates, but that was way ago. That is longer than what archaeologists claim. And in the middle of it, there's this chunk of time where we actually know a lot of different technology and things. We knew how to watch the tide, nature, we just knew how to use all that stuff. And then we built a lot of amazing things. And then there was an asteroid and then we all died. So supposedly that's what they're claiming. There's this big chunk of time where we evolved, whether it be Mayans or Atlantis or whatever it is. And then some sort of catastrophic destruction came and then those people all died. In order to have a better storytelling so that we make ourselves feel very happy that we're intelligent and evolved, that chunk has just been removed so that the story lines up. It wasn't like, we were great, we all died, and then we start from the beginning, because that's not a nice story, right? So I actually believe in that quite a bit as well. Obviously, I just watched one show and did, a little bit of research, but I think it's more about that, if it doesn't line up, it's because somebody deliberately removed something because it didn't fit their story. So I don't think it's because we don't know. We do, but we don't want people to know. I don't know, but that's my idea.
Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't know. Yeah. It's just like not too long ago, we didn't understand why people got sick. We didn't know about germs. We didn't understand any of that stuff, right? And now we do. So there's a lot of things about the world that we don't even know what we don't know yet, right? About the world. We didn't know that we didn't know about germs because we didn't know about them. And so looking backwards, there's probably lots of things we don't know about the past, just like there are lots of things we don't know about the future. And, we're always learning new things about the past, things that we thought we knew and then we find out we didn't really know. Like when we first started finding dinosaur bones, we had a lot different idea about what dinosaurs looked like than the current idea.
Dinosaurs definitely don't look like dinosaurs. That's what I think. Because if you imagine a whale died, and then the whale species is this extinction, and then years after, they find all the fossils and all that, and they're like,
okay, this is what it looks like.
They're not going to.
Again, it's a lot of educated guessing.
Yeah.
Making the best deductions you can with the information we have, but
it's changed a lot even in my lifetime, right? They used to be the the terrible lizard dinosaur, right? And then they looked very lizard-like, and now they talk about that they may look more bird-like. They're more related to chickens probably than they used to be thought of. So they definitely have changed with their theories. Scott, if you ever want to get a deeper discussion about dinosaurs, my sister-in-law is a paleontologist, so
there we go.
So I could get you. She'd probably be happy to come on.
We could talk about dinosaurs. Yeah, that'd be good.
Oh.
Yeah, you can definitely get her on.
So Jurassic Park, listen, they're growing chicken in test tubes. In 5 years, you're going to be able to go to the supermarket and buy chicken from a test tube.
But will it taste like chicken?
Everything tastes like chicken.
Well, it's chicken. Genetically, it's chicken. They're just growing it. So it may be. What I'm trying to say is, we don't know, and we could maybe give birth to dinosaurs again somehow. If we can find some
With the way they did it in Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
Find some DNA somewhere. I mean, it's theoretically possible what they were saying. Find
Yeah,
a bug
so
that had some blood and get the DNA, and yeah.
Right. If they can find it and they can find that DNA, they can make that in the lab. We could see dinosaurs again.
Theoretically, yeah. It's maybe possible.
Yep. By the way, you were talking about music. That, going back to the original question, that would be something else. That was a great answer that you got to have with you.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I write a lot about the fact that in certain times of my life, periods of my life, I would go through weeks and maybe months of just listening to my 60s music incessantly to occupy the mind, to keep it busy. And that helped me get through whatever crisis that I was in. I had to have my music.
And if we didn't have music, we would just be singing and making music anyways, I feel.
Yeah.
It's even if we had no instruments, no nothing, we'd be banging on the ground and we'd be making music somehow.
Right.
It would happen.
Scott and I'd be driving you guys crazy if you were in the same enclosure with us by constantly drumming or whistling or singing something constantly. Yeah.
I mean, I already do that, and I have instruments around, so.
Same for me.
What are some of your favorite musicians out there in Iowa?
Oh, I just took my kids to go see a concert. We just went to Council Bluffs. The Mega Monsters tour was coming through, so I just took the kids. The kids and I all went to go see a couple of my favorite bands. So
you don't get Springsteen coming out there, do you?
not too often. I have seen Springsteen though when he did his I guess his kind of reunion tour with the E Street Band.
Okay.
And when I used to live in Memphis, Tennessee, and he came through Memphis, and so I went down there and saw him. So no, he was good.
Yeah, yeah.
What music would you have to take with you though, Scott? Like if you could only be limited, like that's like the old question. Like you're stuck on a desert island, you can only take like 5 artists. Who would you take?
Oh, that's a good question.
Good question.
Well, which ones do I listen to the most? I could just look at Spotify and see what my top ones are.
That's cheating. That's cheating.
Yeah. So Reliant K would be on there probably.
Ooh.
Reliant K. Cake.
Oh yeah, Cake's good.
Who else do I listen to quite a bit? The Flowbots. Nobody knows who they are, I'm sure. I listen to a lot of We the Kingdom, Greta Van Fleet, Nirvana, Audioslave. I don't know. I have a big variety. I don't have like entire albums on, like I listen to generally. Mm-hmm. I've got 2 songs from these people, a couple songs from those people, a couple songs from there. So I have kind of a wide variety of tastes.
I take this blues artist, Howlin' Wolf. That would be a guy I'd take with me. I kind of learned about him a few years ago. He's kind of back in the 60s, kind of later blues. So he's in my top 5 list for sure.
Yeah.
He's got this great voice.
Is there a good Hong Kong band that we probably don't know about that we should listen to, Joyce? Any recommendations for us?
There's a lot of really good Hong Kong bands.
I'm sure there's a ton, yeah.
And I feel like I'm like too old to even comment on it. Like, I don't even know what the young people are listening to anymore. They're on TV, they look great, they play good music, no clue who they are, I don't know. But which is interesting as well, as you guys mentioned, because I've visited the States, I've never lived in the States, so I would say that's very, very different. A lot of the references that you guys make, I have no clue about, but that's what the things I would go back to the show for and research and look into it. I've never been to Iowa either. I grew up in Vancouver, so the closest place for me to visit was like LA, but I did the whole touristy thing, so I think it's not really authentic. But because I was a dancer, I did hip hop, so obviously my playlist is all hip hop music. And if I can only choose one, it's definitely going to be J. Cole, which is kind of weird as well, because like I'm this little like Asian girl from Hong Kong, and my choice would be J. Cole, while you guys are like, oh, we'll choose Nirvana or blues, and I'm like, I'm going to choose J. Cole.
Yeah, well, in Vancouver, you're close to Seattle. You'd think you'd be into the grunge stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I don't know why it
That's
didn't.
so funny.
I didn't. But yeah, I was definitely a big, into hip hop a lot. So,
Yeah, yeah,
I can't recall any of the names because I'm just not. I don't know. I don't have it in my head. But
sure.
all of the original samples of the people of the music that they've sampled are probably the music that I should be taking because they sampled from those music. So it's probably the
Yeah,
music
yeah.
from the 50s, the 60s. I don't know who they are, but those would probably be the ones that would keep me going if I was ever in a stranded island or wherever isolated. Because then I'll be like, oh, that reminds me of that song. Oh, they sampled from that song. It's just like this interesting conversation I can have in my mind based on these music. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, like,
for
yeah.
sure. How much space do you think you would need?
Considering I'm from Hong Kong, not a lot, because I don't have a lot of space to start off with. I mean,
Yeah, it depends what you're used to, right? For sure.
I would love to have more space, but the only thing is, once you have more space, there's a lot more cleaning to do. And I am
Maybe
very
they
kind
would. I
of,
mean, you're in a zoo. Maybe they come in and clean your enclosure. I mean, I don't know, right? The animals don't clean their own spaces in the zoos, right?
yeah, that's another thing as well. I watched a show recently where they showcase this aquarium, like their day to day, how they kind of clean out their stuff. They have this whole like basement area is just full of poop, and they kind of clean it out every single week. But anyways, that's kind of another story. But I'm not trying to be mean here. I noticed that I am the one with the long hair and all that, and we have two lovely bald gentlemen here. So you would not know how much hair I have to clean on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
I'm just shredding, and then I have two dogs, so there's just fur everywhere. It's kind of like in the old movies where you have all these just hair and stuff flying around. So they could be cleaning my area or my captivity zone or whatever, but I'll still be having hair around, so that's an issue for me.
Well, we have two dogs, but they're both doodles, so there's no shedding. It's really nice.
Yeah,
And I
mine's
don't. I
are.
don't shed.
You don't
So
shed, yeah. My
No.
husband and I both have long hair, so we're both like it's just everywhere.
yeah, yeah.
What about your pet? Would you want to be able to have a pet in the zoo? Would you want your dog, Scott? Speaking of dogs, I mean, I have a dog. I'd kind of like to have a pet. So do you think that's allowed? Because I can't. I was trying to think earlier if there are any zoo situations where they have
I think
animals in the enclosure with other animals. I was having trouble. I knew there
they
must
do.
be,
They do
but
sometimes. They do sometimes mix up some of the animals that get along well together.
yeah.
That would make
Would they
sense.
let us have pets?
I mean, if they're doing a zoo of Earth, then they're gonna have animals in it too, right? Not just people. We're just gonna be another one of the things in the zoo. So
Are you suggesting the zoo is the Earth is a zoo? Is that what you're suggesting?
maybe I don't know. I
That's
don't
like, that
know.
was my joke about earlier when I said that we're already living in a zoo.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, we mentioned COVID and not being able to leave home and go out, and depending on where you live, that was more or less strict. We weren't really that strict here in Iowa, but some people might feel like that was a similar kind of thing, right?
It was.
Except without somebody observing you.
It really was incarceration. And as far as the observation go, we weren't that far away from 1984, George Orwell. You got Zoom. You're sitting in front of Zoom. You're doing your stuff like we're doing right here. It's not that far removed. I would hope that we would have an ample amount of space, like they put lions and tigers in big caged areas that they can roam around. So I would hope that the prison setting for us would have us have some gardens and just be this pretty big under glass. I would hope and expect that if they're that smart, they would want to whatever they want to use this for, maybe amusement. They would want us to be comfortable and in kind of like our native habitat.
Yeah, and I guess the observing thing is another interesting question, right? Like, so let's say we've got the space, we can interact with people, we've got our instruments, we got all our pet, all the things that we want. How weird would it be to know that we're there for them to watch? And how much would that change what you do?
It could be
A
hugely
lot.
different. Yeah. I think I'd change it, enormously. I mean, the idea that you're being watched or somehow observed, or knowing that you're being watched or observed.
Right, because if you didn't know about it, then it wouldn't really matter, right?
No, right. Go about it all the time, just like normal. But yeah, not yeah. But if you know you're being watched, I mean, then you change how you act, you change your interactions. I don't know what that would do if it was long term. Would that change? Like, would you just eventually get used to it and just go on about your business like you normally do, or would that not make any difference?
Yeah, you probably get used to it, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, again, back to like being in prison, right? I mean, they're pretty open a lot of times. It depends where you are, but kind of the stereotypical prison, which is the bars on the cell, and people can see you. So, I don't know if that's a thing you get used to or what. Yeah.
You probably get used to it because like you know that somebody's watching, but the first instance of being looked at, or what we call like gazed at, that's a thing that came from the whole visual arts thing, has this mentality as well, the gaze, or a lot of the times it's like male gaze or the female gaze. When you're looking at a painting, they try to mimic it as though you're gazing at it. How would that person kind of react? That's another story, but like there's a whole theory and this whole idea behind the gaze and what it kind of triggers. So from that, I would say your initial way of action and what you do would have been changed, and then throughout time you would think that that's natural to you, but it's actually not, because it was affected by the gaze. So yeah, I mean, like considering that I live in Hong Kong as well, my neighbor is right there. Like I could walk by and I know exactly what he's doing because we're so close. And if you were to ask me, those people who live close to the highways or the roads and things like that, I would assume that they already have naturally kind of changed their way because they know there is potentially a gaze, right? Is that something they would naturally do if they were in their home and placing their furnitures? I would assume not. So I think it definitely has that effect on it, considering what you've mentioned as well with the whole gaze and the whole space idea.
Well, and you were saying before that you wanted some alone time, some alone space as well. In some ways, what you really mean is you want some privacy, right? You want a place where you can go and people wouldn't be seeing you and interacting with you.
Yes.
And I just thought, Cam, going back to the end of the first episode again, one thing that nobody mentioned was a toilet, a space to go to the bathroom. It came up that would it be really nice if you never had to go to the bathroom? How would that change the world? But yeah, that's a thing, you would want some privacy, right? For
Definitely.
a bathroom, for changing, like you're being observed, like you want some privacy space, I would assume, because in a zoo, the animals don't really have generally a private space they can go to.
But would that again, going back to that question, would that be considered a zoo anymore, right? Because we're there to look at you. They're there to look at us and say, I want to see everything.
And even if you have some private space and they're not observing you, the guests at the zoo, are the zookeepers still gonna want to be able to observe that area? I would assume.
Yeah, definitely. Like medical stuff, or like we have to daily check your poop just to make sure you're healthy for our exhibit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it has to be a zoo, I would imagine there is no, like you said, that's a great question that you raised as well. Is it privacy? Is it the same idea of privacy? Is it going to be the same kind of concept where we have boundaries? Is that the idea, or is it not really that anymore? What so-called privacy is just like a nice word that they're throwing around. We're giving our animals, the human beings, some sort of privacy, but they're looking through every single thing anyways.
And do aliens even understand the concept of privacy, or like clothing? Or would they see us wearing clothing and think that's for warmth? We'll just make their area warm enough. They don't need clothes. Then we don't have to give them clothes. We'll make it the right temperature. Are they going to understand the idea of that? I don't know.
If they're completely new to the planet, I would imagine them being super confused. Like, there's people here in Hong Kong wearing long sleeves when, like, you guys would probably be here, like, wanting to wear nothing because it's humid and hot. And then there's nude beaches, right? Like, people picking not to wear anything in front of everybody and people are having fun. They're definitely going to be super confused. Like, these are the same species. Their DNA is the same. Their skin color is slightly different. But, like, these people love to wear clothes. These people hate to wear clothes. Like, is that a different exhibit? This is like the nude zone, and then this is like the people who need their long sleeves, and then this is the place where they need their fur or whatever it is. Like, I don't know, maybe they'll start categorizing us, based on what apparels we decide to do. They love their varsity jerseys and all that kind of stuff, and then you guys go in there. I don't know, I'm just making this up, but maybe it's that. Maybe that's the way they categorize us afterwards, instead of maybe our skin color, our ethnicity, our religion, and other
true.
stuff. It might just be, they wear hats.
Maybe
or
be
something.
clothes humans and not clothes humans. You'd see the different ones.
Yeah. Maybe it's that. Who knows?
My theory is if they got here from wherever they and had the wherewithal to get here, they're smart enough to understand all of this, and they would make the right kind of accommodations.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we would hope so.
Or they'll just ask AI. So they'll come and they'll ask AI. They built this thing. Let's ask that thing. They probably know better than us. Which I don't know. Like, what are your experiences with just using AI? The first thing I did with AI is that I asked if the AI knew who I was, and because of the content I put online all the time based on my job, they did know who I was, which was quite fascinating. Joyce Tsang is a
Interesting.
content marketer.
I haven't thought to do that yet. I haven't thought to ask it who I was.
You should definitely do that.
One of the things that I've done with AI is, so I have my YouTube channel, I do puzzles and stuff, and I actually did a video where I asked ChatGPT, I tried to have it solve a Wordle. It failed pretty badly. It doesn't understand letters, and that a word is made up of a block of letters. It just knows a word as a word. It knows Steve is word number 8,672. It doesn't know that it's STEVE, right? It doesn't understand the concept of letters. It was really interesting. It seems so smart sometimes, and then if you know how Wordle works, basically we'd put in a word and then it would show up and it would say, oh, there's a yellow A at the beginning of the word. So I'd tell it that, which means that A is not the first letter. And then it would come back and say, oh, well, you should guess apple because it has an A and not at the beginning of the word. I'm like, well, it clearly has an A at the beginning of the word. So
Yeah.
it was just interesting how it was so smart in some areas and it's just so dumb in others.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I asked it to play Hangman, which, of course, again, it has some trouble with the letters, but I told it, it understood the rules. I made sure it knew the rules to Hangman. I said, you pick a word, and then I'll guess, right? And so I start guessing, and I can't figure out what this word is. I'm getting letters figured out, and eventually, just by lucky guesses, I got all the letters figured out. No idea what this word is. And it says, oh, the answer was... and it gives me the word, and then it says, which is, and it gives me a definition. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then I Googled it and looked it up. Couldn't find it anywhere. So I went back and said, I don't remember what, I questioned it. I said, what is that? What is this word? And then it said, oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. That's actually not a word. What?
The AI hallucination comes in. Yeah, that's the thing.
So
They
weird.
hallucinate, yeah.
They tricked you.
So
So it cheated, is what
Yeah.
you're saying. AI cheated. And Hangman.
basically, yeah, it cheated. Well, what's funny is it said this is the word and this is the definition. I said, what is that? And it's like, oh, oops, never mind. Okay.
I had AI do a bio. There's three that I use: ChatGPT, Bard, and there's one other I forget. But I asked it to do a bio. I just did it the other day, and it spit out a long bio. A fairly is the key word, fairly accurate bio, except it had me writing 4 books instead of 2, and it had me having 2 sons instead of 1.
It's just looking into the future to when you've had 2 more books and another son.
I don't think so. But
Reinventing after 60. I mean, come on.
it's funny, George, you said you were from Vancouver. My AI connection is a philosophy professor in Vancouver.
Right.
And we had met on LinkedIn, and we struck up a really nice friendship. He's the one who built that robot that is self-aware. It's the world's first and I think only self-aware robot. But he's Vancouver, and we get together every 2-3 weeks on air, and we talk about all these different AI subjects because it fascinates. And I brought up and talked to him about it in 1964. Arthur Clarke, who wrote 2001, which came out in the late 60s, that was directed by Stanley Kubrick. He warned, Arthur Clarke warned us in 1964 about AI and those kind of things taking us over. And by the way, watch this. Again, a permutation of your original question, Scott. We're saying, aliens, but AI can come along and take us over and be an alien.
Yeah, in a sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Or you could go with something like the book The Sphere by Michael Crichton. I don't know if you guys have read that, but they think there's aliens, and it turns out it's us from the future who have time traveled back. So that's always a possibility too, right?
Yeah. So alien is a kind of a funny word. It could mean a lot of different things.
That's true.
Alien
really just means foreign, right? Or not.
Absolutely.
Not from here.
Scott, you're gonna have to put the spoiler alert on there for anybody who hasn't read The Sphere before you post this.
The Sphere, the book from 40 years ago. Yeah.
Michael Crichton's got a lot of.
Yeah. Maybe not quite 40, but Michael Crichton's probably my favorite author. So, big fan of his stuff. Yeah. We were talking about Jurassic Park earlier. That's another Michael Crichton one. So.
And we almost had the Andromeda Strain.
This is the kind of thing that he would write about, actually. Yeah. Now, another thing that I noticed nobody has mentioned, would you ask for things if they said, what do you want in your zoo enclosure, right? The aliens ask you. Nobody asked for anything that would help them escape.
I had thought about that. I was going to ask about a cake with a file in it. Can I have that so I could escape? Like, the old movies, I had thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, we said we wanted connections with other people, and I feel like to coordinate, they've come down, they've attacked us, they've put us in zoos. I want the stuff that I need so we can mount some sort of escape or attack to take back control, yeah.
I also immediately went to a bed. Can I have a bed? Because I have a comfortable place to sleep. So you're thinking of how to escape. I'm thinking how to make my stay more comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, right, and there's kind of two ways to look at it, right? Because if you're trying to escape, you're probably not going to be as comfortable.
No.
Right? If you just accept it and be comfortable, you're probably going to live a lot better. So maybe that's the way to go. I don't know, right? Ignorance is bliss, like we said before.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on, your status and how you're living, not to try and get into socio-political ideas here, but like how you were living before the aliens came, right? If you're having a really well-off life, you're driving everywhere, you're rich, and you have a lot of disposable income to buy stuff, then yeah, you're definitely the one who's going to think about escaping. But I saw that, again, this is probably going to be like the thing that it's going to upcome in the show for me a lot. I saw the show. Joyce is the girl who always says, I saw the show.
We did that a lot on the previous episodes, too.
Yeah.
Don't worry. This has been a common theme on this show in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the show. About jails around the world, right? Like, and there's this jail in, I think, somewhere in like Norway or Sweden, the happiest place on earth. And their jail is like, me and my husband were like, like, I wouldn't mind living there. Like, yeah, I'm stripped of my freedom, but they get their own kitchen, they get activities, they have a healthy schedule. Obviously, we're not looking to commit crime, but, if your comfort level of being captivated is more or less the same of how you were living before being captivated, then you don't really, I would go for what Cam just mentioned, like just trying to make myself at home. But if the distance between the two qualities of life is very vast, then I would definitely think about escaping. So to answer your question, if there is that white picket fence in a little house, I'd probably be really happy staying there because I don't have a picket white fence and I don't mind having a little house. So yeah, it really depends on the status that you were beforehand to answer that escape or non-escape question, I think.
For sure. And it's kind of, that's sort of the premise of the show. Conversely, the reason it's conversely is different converse backgrounds, converse opinions, because depending on your approach. So again, back to the first episode where Cam and I were, we asked people, we did a would you rather, and we said, would you rather never have to eat or never have to sleep? And we all had different opinions. Most of us preferred not to sleep because we would have more time to get things done. But that I realized after the fact, I had some comments from people that watched the video clip with that, and it never even occurred to, I think, any of us, none of us mentioned it anyways. One person said, well, I would prefer to not have to eat because I'm from the Ukraine and we're in a war right now, and I can't afford food, and so if I didn't have to eat, it would save me a ton of money. And I was like, wow, it never even occurred to me that like, oh, it would save you money by not having to eat. We were like, oh, we want more time to do things because we're so busy, you know. But your approach and where you're from, it's like, oh wow, yeah, that would really make a big difference depending on your background and what your situation is currently. So yeah, definitely in this, tons of people, it'd probably be much better for them. Yeah. You're providing a house for me, you're giving me food, you're probably cleaning things, you're doing all the medical tests and keeping me healthy, and yeah, this is great, you know.
I think it was insightful what Joyce said about where you were at, like how close it is to the way you live now, and if it's better or worse than your current station and where you're at in life, makes a big impact on whether or not you would want to escape or not. I mean, that's something I hadn't thought about, but it does make a lot of sense that if you have a pretty comfortable life, or if it's better than what you have right now, then yeah, you wouldn't want to escape.
I mean, if you got your blues music, then what else?
Get a house, a dog, cat, 3 squares a day. What more do you ask for?
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it's certainly interesting. Well, I'll be interested to see the comments too on this episode to see, because everybody's going to have a different approach, I think, based on their background and also based on your assumptions of what this zoo would be like, right? Is it like you're in a little cage with nothing? Is it a nice house and stuff? Is it like they've walled in a city? Yeah, what's it like? And speaking of comments on the episode, I'll mention that I did create a Reddit forum for this show, so there's a different page for every episode, so if people want to go discuss it, they should go there. You can find all the links to everything at conversely.fm, so I'll plug that. Well, I think, speaking of bed, Cam, it's getting late in the evening for some people, just start in the morning for some people.
I might go back to bed, actually.
You might go back to bed. There you go. That works too. Yeah. Yeah, my son came home from school. They just started school this last just a few days ago, so it's pretty new going back to school. And he came home, and a couple hours later, he comes downstairs. He's like, I just took an 1.5-hour nap on accident. He's tired. He's doing a lot of stuff that he's not used to doing. So yeah, that's valid. Wake up and go back to sleep. Why not? But yeah, so any final thoughts on what you'd want? Any last things you thought of that you said, oh wait, I definitely want my teddy bear or whatever? I don't know, something that you forgot?
How about an option to leave after 6 months? If it's not to my liking, just let me go and become a farmer, raise some corn.
Become a stray?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, give me my freedom.
I actually live right next to this botanical zoo garden thing here in Hong Kong, which is kind of rare because I'm like kind of out there in the suburb kind of area that's like further out, and I live in a village house. That's why I said I have a little place. I'm not rich, so it's not like that kind of house. It's just a village house. But in any case, recently a lizard actually ran out from its captive. He went on a trip on his own, so he was just like, I'm gonna go out here, peace guys. And then he came back just yesterday, and he's like, I'm back, I miss my friends. So that was pretty cool too. Like in Hong Kong, it happens quite often because it's so close to the city. There's ways for them to kind of get out and just take a little trip, and then they're like, I'm coming back because, like you've mentioned, people feed me, it's clean. They have their friends there. Like he actually in the media coverage said the lizard came back and reunited with his tortoise best friend. So it was a nice story, right? Yes. So I guess that would be something that's kind of neat too. If you're kind of in captive or in the zoo, you get to go out sometime, but under the premise that you will come back for your network of community or whatever. I think that was pretty cool. Maybe that could be something that might happen if we were captive in a zoo. Like, did you know about that human Scott? Like, he ran out just 7 days ago, and now he's back reunited with his best friend Cam, right? That's a cool story.
Came back for some nachos.
Yeah, came back for the blues, and then jamming music. He couldn't find the blues music out there, and he came back. I don't know, but that's kind of cool. Like, if you get that as well, like just cool stories.
Yeah, we kind of have that here with cats and dogs typically. Somebody's cattle run away, and they'll say, well, he'll come back in a couple days when he gets hungry. Yeah. That's usually the comment. He'll come back when he gets hungry, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd probably be the same thing. Yeah, Scott will come back when he gets hungry. It won't take long.
Yeah. Yeah, the food. Going back to the food question again.
For sure, yeah. It always comes back to food, doesn't it? Yeah.
It always does.
Cool. Well, so let's, Joyce, remind us again where people can find out more information about you, all the things. What's your website?
Oh, my website is joycetsangcontentmarketing.com. And I always say, if hopefully I did my SEO right for those who are also in marketing, you should be able to find me if you just type in Joyce Tsang, right? I should be up there.
And the links will be in the show notes and all that stuff. So there'll be a link down there so people can find it wherever. Depending on where people listen to the podcast, it always is in a little bit different spot or looks a little bit different. You know, when we're on YouTube, we always just say below the video, but
Link in the description below.
Description below. Yeah, but with podcasts, it could be anywhere. So in the show notes, link in the show notes to your stuff. So people should go check that out. And Calvin, your book is probably out when this episode goes up. If not, it's just about to come out.
Yes, when this gets aired, there's a tortoise in my hair. Journey Spirit will be on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Will be everywhere. And you can find me back. You can find me now at the end of September at calvinschwartz.com. I'm also on LinkedIn quite heavily. Calvin Schwartz on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, Cal Schwartz. So I'm a social media guy.
You're everywhere. Yeah. So there'll be all the links in the show notes to him too. And and Cam, what do we want to tell people? What are you working on? Is anything...
I did not play for the Anaheim Ducks. I guess that's that's going to be the thing for me because there's a hockey player with the same name.
If you Google Cam Fowler, that's what you're going to find is the hockey player for the Anaheim Ducks. Yeah.
I did not win a gold medal in the U.S. Olympic team for hockey. So,
why don't you tell us about your pinball machine? That's exciting.
Oh yeah, I recently found a guide that was a great guide online, and there's a whole community of virtual pinballers out there that are building these amazing cabinets and recreating all these old pinball machines that I grew up with a lot of them and love. And so I decided to build one myself. And there was a great guy. I wish I could think of his name so I could plug him, but he wrote a 1,200-page guide to building your own pinball machine. And it was indispensable and just amazing. So it's really a credit to what you get off the internet.
Send me some pictures, and we'll put some pictures of his pinball machine in the show notes as well. We'll put a link to some pictures.
I'll send you out some. Sounds good.
Very nice. Cool. All right. And of course, conversely.fm is where you can find all of the things for all of this stuff. And so I want to say thank you to all three of you. Appreciate you guys being here, and we'll release you from your captivity now, either to bed or to
back to bed,
the day, or maybe to bed, whatever, or to work if you're like me and you do most of your work late at night. But cool, thanks this was great. Lots of interesting stuff, lots of things that I hadn't even thought about, which is always good. Converse ideas. Cool. All right.
Thank you,
guys. Thank you, Scott.
See you, everybody.
Nice to meet you all.
Bye.
Bye. I mean, I don't know if you guys are fans of Netflix and stuff. There's this show, but again, I watched another show on Netflix. I watched a show recently where they have, this is probably going to be like the thing that it's going to upcome in the show. Joyce is the girl who always says, I saw the show.
Well, don't worry. I definitely won't put a bunch of clips of you at the end of the episode saying, I saw this show.
Yeah, I saw this show.